Hello, everyone. Before we get started, a really short survey. When I show you this symbol, who thinks here this means there is no data, it's empty? By Chauffeur, okay? Who thinks it means average? Okay. Who thinks it means zero, like the number zero? Okay, a couple of you. When I show you this, what do you understand? Do you understand stop, you shall not pass? Or you understand, hey, what's up? Like B, okay. How about this one? Does it mean to rotate an object? Yeah? Does it mean to undo something, to redo an action you just did? Or maybe last option, does it mean to refresh? Refresh, many of them, okay. When I show you that, whoa, wow. Calm down, Tiger, we just met, right? Well, thank you so much for your answer, for your participation, and thank you to Web for the amazing conference. I mean, big up to you guys, because it's freaking amazing. I'm really aware that the last talk before the lunch break, so I will try not to be too long. Today we're going to discuss universal design, and more specifically, what does it mean to design interface for different demographics, different culture, that actually apply for everyone. And just so you get a bit of a background explanation, obviously I am French, I will try to overcome these accents, and my really first job was in a startup, a game studio, where we created among the first augmented reality and geolocated games in Europe. And since no one wanted to do interface design because it was not cool enough, it kind of became my job. And since that time, I've been building interfaces for different clients, for different projects. And fast forward to today, I am now the founder of design studio based in Berlin, Germany. And we are a wild bunch of UX, UI, or product designer, visual designer. As we learned yesterday, there's many titles to describe what we do. But we're also marketing consultant, user researcher, and our goal is to translate the user needs into experiences that people truly love. We got acquired last year by the RE Group, where I also serve as a design director. And I'm not doing here some shameless promotion, far from me the idea. I just want to give you some element of answer for what is coming. Because over the last few years, I worked personally on more than 60 different clients, some really conservative, some much more liberal, and much more like innovative, for different countries. I did banks in Lebanon, I work for insurance in Austria, for startups in Canada, and the interesting part is you learn a lot from your clients, you learn a lot from the end users, and as you see, a lot of different companies with different backgrounds and purposes. And I kind of thought I understood the drill. You know, when you work 15 years doing, I wouldn't say the same job, but in the same field, you tend to gather certain know-how. You meet super interesting people like you speak with many different users, you solve different needs and different expectations, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I wanted to convey. I thought I knew how it works. Color semantics. If I pick up a red color, in your mind it's directly like a signal color is associated with something negative, something wrong. You have to cancel an action. If you pick up a green one, you know it's a confirmation, it's a positive signal. Then you can decline that to gray, to blue, and so on. Other example. Progressive disclosure. You don't want to overwhelm your user, right? It's what you see during onboardings when you are playing with a wizard. It's not, you don't want you want to split a bit the contents into a progressive disclosing of this information. And I think Duolingo do that perfectly. You have the possibility to concentrate on one item before moving to the next one. Or things like affordance, to clearly signalize what's behind a UI element. So I know the left one is deactivated, I know the right one, I know the left one is activated and the right one is deactivated. Or another example, visual hierarchy. It's important to organize your information so that people can read them comfortably. From left to right in certain society, in Arabic and Hebraic cultures from right to left, but you have a certain pattern. So here we have the F pattern, we have the Z pattern, and there are so many examples of what you learn from best practice, from design principle. And I thought, that I pretty much understood how the human being work. Obviously, you have to adapt to the language. You have to translate for a certain country that don't speak English, for instance. But I kind of thought I knew the drill. And then I came to Japan for the first time last year. I don't know if some of you are above 30, but it's kind of the obligatory stopover when you reach 30. You want to go to Japan, right? And I was expecting, kind of a Zen design culture where everything has its place. They put so much love and so much attention into details. So I was really looking for a journey as a designer of zenitude, let's put it like that way. And then I opened the first website, and excuse my French, but it's freaking bananas. Everything I told you about progressive disclosure, about prioritization of information, is just thrown out of the window. It's we just do not care. And you have these really overwhelming interfaces. And to give you an example, it's not even solely for for companies only present in Japan. Here is Rakuten. That's the French version on the left one. It's kind of a traditional e-commerce shop. And you go to the right, you don't even know where to start, right? It's extremely overwhelming. And this also applies to physical interfaces as well. I don't know if you have heard of the Konbini, which are pretty much the Japanese convenience store. And they are extremely interesting because they sell everything you want. And I thought one day that I was brave enough to check out by my own. So I used the self-checkout. And when I was done scanning my item, I pressed the green button. A couple of times, nothing happened, and then the cashier came to me, and I was like, "Now, woman, I know exactly what I'm doing." So I keep on pressing the button, saying, "Okay, I should pay. I didn't know what to pay my card." Until I realized this green button does not mean to buy the product. It actually means to get a plastic bag or to show your loyalty card. Actually, the button to proceed is the red one, right? Which is obviously for me kind of a wrong or negative CTA. And then you have a couple of blue CTA. What they do, I will never know. But needless to say, I got a little bit, I lost a bit the confidence I had. So I approached a professor at the Keio University in Tokyo, and I told him that I would like to investigate this really matter. And Professor Waldman welcomed me as a visiting researcher at this university. I'm actually still supposed to be there. And my key research question was, is it actually possible to have one single interface for everyone? Can one design work for everyone? And before getting started, I knew that universal design is not a new concept, and also knew it's not something that purely applies to UX UI design. It's something that also applies for physical product, and there's so many smart people, way smarter than us, that work on this topic. So I decided to start my research with a heavy literature review. This is actually a stock picture that I show to my parents. I was obviously behind my computer on an underwear during 6 months, but that was pretty much the initial start of this literature review. And before I show you the results of the key question, I would like to share a couple of insights that for me were new. You may have heard about that, but that would help you to understand this difference of cultures. And the first one is a framework created by Gert Hofstede, I think in the 60s, and he decided to categorize the cultures based on 6 different dimensions. So one of them is power distance, the other one is individualism versus collectivism, you have motivation towards achievement and success, uncertainty avoidance, long-term versus short-term orientation, indulgence versus restraint. And that way he really helped us to break away a bit the stereotypes and understand better how different countries work. And just for fun, I decided to compare 2 countries that I believe were quite similar, Germany and Japan. Obviously, it's a different region of the world, but deep down, they have the same love for engineering. They have this really manufacturing past. They love their rules. Sometimes you don't even understand why, but this taste for structure and for like systems that are well organized. But what I realized is that actually they are so different on many levels, and this kind of framework helped me to understand that, for example, Germany are much more individualistic than Japanese. Also, weirdly enough, they're much more ready to take some risk, whereas the Japan were less. And to zoom in a little bit into this framework and to share a couple of takeaway, let's try to understand what does it mean uncertainty avoidance, so UAI. So it's a bit your relationship with ambiguity, with risk and things that you don't really understand. So in Japan, they are extremely uncomfortable with a situation they don't truly master. They are not comfortable with unknown. They prefer, as I mentioned, the structure, the known step, the rules, which is why in a UI world, you will work heavily with this kind of steppers on top of your funnel. So you will have like step 1 is a registration, step 2 contact, 3 profile creation, and so on. Whereas in low UAI cultures, such as the US, UK, Sweden, I don't really care about all this. It's all about efficiency. I want to go straight to the goal, express checkout, booth, face ID, I buy the product. I don't want to be bothered with the details. Sure, I take some risk, but at the end, I'm ready to take it. And that's actually where you will see this kind of option in e-commerce world, when you will have things like express checkout, when you can, go over a couple of steps. Another super interesting aspect is individualism versus collectivism. And you will notice a bit the difference when you go to Latin America, when you go to Southeast Asia, how people present themselves. Either they start by giving the last name, or where they are from, or which company they are, and then at some point they will come as an individual. Whereas, in many European countries, pretty much, hey, my name is Guillaume, and deal with it. It's a different approach of identifying yourself. And when it comes to e-commerce, again, you will have, I don't know if you've seen this kind of influencer trying clothes really fast in order to promote certain products. It's really common there to have like people showcasing why they love a product, and they build a lot of social proof, trying to motivate you and explain you why, if you buy this brand, you belong to a group. Whereas on Amazon, for instance, by the way, this is not my product basket, but if you look at Amazon, it's all about you. It's tailor-made for you, it's optimized for you, it's all about you as an individual, pretty much in company. Either what counts is a group performance, or it's more you as an individual if you are ready to meet your goal. Another effect, and for those who were there until the end of the day yesterday, that shouldn't be a surprise, this is the curbstone effect. So the curbstone is this cut in a curb that actually facilitates people, people that originally had some special accessibility needs, like a wheelchair, to actually go on a curb. And this ended up benefiting many other people with a bike, people with a stroller with kids, or with a luggage. So by designing for people with certain special needs, you actually help a big portion of the population. And the last concept I would like to bring with you is that symbols I really believed to be universal. And that's pretty much the answer. The hypothesis I had, thinking like, let's just deal with icon because they convey the meaning. And what I learned is that many countries believe their symbols are universal, but they are not. And the best example is when you go to the Japanese footer, you will see this symbol called the Shoshinsha mark. Does any one of you know what is it? Oh, wow, one answer, really good. So that's actually the sticker that young driver or like beginners put behind their car to actually signify that they're just learning and they are not perfect yet. And this symbol, as you see, it's second from the bottom, is used in footers, it's really used widely. And when I speak with UI designers out, for them it was completely obvious what it meant. But for me as a European, I actually struggled to understand that it was like either the FAQ section, or where to start, or like simplify content. This is where, for the people that do not have all the know-how. And to illustrate this even better. I know today we speak a lot about gaming. You may be familiar with the controller from PlayStation, and I don't know if you wonder why they chose these symbols. Well, the thing is, in many Asian culture, the circle means okay. It's not the check mark. It's actually this round form. So you will see that in Korea, you will see that in Japan. And when the designer Goto decided to create this universal controller, he thought like, well, the round is obvious, it means okay. The cross, okay, fair enough, the cross in pretty much every culture, it means, cancel or no. But this is kind of a proof that believing that your symbols are universal can actually lead to a lot of ambiguity and misunderstanding, as we just saw during the survey at the beginning of this presentation. So once I actually gathered all this know-how, obviously I wanted to verify certain of this take, and I decided to gather some individuals from Southeast Asia and from Western Europe, and I concentrated myself on 2 generations, people from 20 to 35 and from 60 to 75. And I'm really well aware that this is just a limited samples. I'm aware that it's not actually covering the entirety of the human population, whether culturally or demographically, but it actually was a start in order to validate or not certain of these findings. And I thought about the kind of interface I wanted to test. Originally, I thought about a login purpose, or then about buying a product on an e-commerce website, but then realized it would bring so much different factors, so much bias, it would be too complex, so I tried to find the simplest interface, interactive interface possible, and also one of the most common one, which is the contact form, something that you pretty much have since, the early days of internet. Then I picked several forms, existing forms in Japan, in Western Europe. So here you see on the right a German form. On the top left you have a Japanese one. And in the middle, based on all the literature I found, I created this universal form that I wanted to compare and challenge against the local champion, so to say. Now the question is, what did I find out? Well, the first thing is no one likes to fill in forms. Like, no one likes to fill in information online. And it sounds maybe super obvious, but I thought, naively, that certain generation wouldn't mind, just like to put information because they are so, you have a certain rigor, a certain motivation to the outcome that, they wouldn't mind. But I realized, like, everyone was actually skipping the optional fields. There's not one single person that say like, you know what, I'm just going to give my phone number because I love it. It just didn't happen, People just wanted to have as simple information as possible, and also they didn't want to read too much, which was for me super interesting because obviously when in Japanese interfaces you have a lot of content. So I kind of was, surprised the right word, to see that actually all of them were really preferred to go with a simple, cleaner layout and actually avoid having too much background information. And another surprise was redundancy, because designer tends to reduce the clutter. We want to have it as minimal as possible. Saint-Exupéry said that, I think it was him, that perfection is when you don't have anything to, you cannot take anything out from the design. And I think it's a bit, the direction that most of the visual designers go to. They want to reduce as much as possible, which makes sense in the first case, but when it comes to key elements, such as interactive messages, such as CTA, such as things that are actually crucial to your interface, then you have to pick up, you have to work with redundancy. And what do I mean with redundancy? Is actually to accumulate the visual cue. So you don't rely solely on colors to convey meaning. You don't rely solely on symbols or icon. You don't rely solely on text. You really try to put 2, 3, even 4 if you work with interaction, to make sure that your interface will be understandable by any kind of generation and cultures. Another thing that surprised me, especially among the younger generation, is this need for confirmation. And when we need for confirmation, I mean, for instance, an email that you receive when you fill in a form, but also like a visual feedback when something is working or not working. But the surprise that I meant is that in Japan, you have an additional review screen before you submit your information. We have a bit the same when we order products, in Western Europe. You have like this summary of what you did, and then you click OK. But we don't have that for a contact form. Most of the time, you fill in, you send it, and it's done. And there you have this like additional layer actually to allow you to double check if everything is right. And it was really appreciated, even though by younger generation and people around the world, which kind of, I reflected a bit on that. And I think that even if some people are ready to take some risk, there are some parts of the journey that are not negotiable. And it's about making sure that the information you convey is the right one. And looping back to what we said yesterday about accessibility, it should be part of your creative brief. It should be part of your initial step when you work on your product design, because the worst case scenario, people just won't even notice it. And in the best case situation, people will truly appreciate that, and it's going to change their whole experience. Meaning, for this universal layout that I worked on, I decided to work with a certain typo size, a certain contrast. I really tried to minimize any friction in the responsive behaviors, also with the keyboard navigation, and no one noticed it. No one who didn't have any visual impairments struggled with it. I had one teenager that told me, well, it looks really, really clean, but that's all they could say about, the difference of font size. And for the people, most of the time they were the elderly users, they actually rely on bigger font size. They were super happy to have something that actually fit the expectations. So, that's why you can't go wrong by following the accessible standards, because in a worst case scenario, people won't just notice it. But unfortunately, I was wrong on a couple of details, and that's what I want to share with you today, the divergence, the differences. First of all, different cultures. So in my naive approach, I thought we could simplify, the name inputs and just have one simple name in field and have people deal with it. First name, last name, you just put it whatever you want. Just put your name somewhere there. And I realized that Japanese users didn't like it because they really wanted to have this furigana, which is the phonetic pronunciation of your name. Because, you could expect that for maybe older generation that are used to fill in this analog form when it's part of it. But even the young ones, they didn't want to be misgendered. They didn't want to be mispronounced. So this ended up being actually one of a locale that I could not replace, and that minimum or simplified design could not meet. Now let's speak about generational differences. That was quite interesting because I thought that the @ symbol was a universal meaning for male, and then you have this young girl that asked me why should I put my Snapchat account next to it? I said well, it's maybe not the Snapchat that's required. And then she read the text in the field. She understood it was to enter your email, but the first reflex was to associate the @ icon with social media handle, which was obviously not the case for all the generation of users. Same with the printed. When you told me, okay, but why should I call a number to print the form? And I said, it's maybe not what was meant, right? And I think this is also interesting because even if icon can be truly universal for a generation, it tends to evolve and it has to be refreshed and looked over quite regularly because you can't have one status quo which is valid for all the generation in the future. I did not really answer the question of the beginning because I told you something is possible, something are not. So is it actually possible to create universal design? Is it actually possible to have one design for everything? Well, like many things in life, it's complicated. And I decided to come up with a framework which is all about dividing the interface in two different layers. So first of all, you have what I call the universal layer, where you have to include, for instance, accessibility standards. It's just a non-negotiable. It has to be part of your interface design from day one. But then you also have things like common imagery. So if you are buying a product, you will have a picture of this product in your e-commerce platform. Or things like international and well-known pattern, from top to bottom, like scrolling top to bottom on the website, these kind of things. So this will be the first layer. And on top of that, you have what I call a contextual layer, where you will have, I don't know, like your information hierarchy, your unit of measurements, you know, like the Brits, you work with the imperial system, rest of the world with international metrics. You will have, you know, the input for your date, for instance. You start either with a year, you start with a day, depending on where you are around the world. And we are already kind of doing that, to be honest, with the language. You know, the first thing that you change when you visit a website abroad is the language. So there's already this idea of a layer that adapts based on your needs. But I think we could push a bit further if our ambition is to create interface that's actually valid around the world. And the sweet things, AI is going to help us with it, because AI can identify where you're from and adapt, you know, this layer based on your requirements and based on your expectations. So yeah, to sum it up in a couple of key takeaways. First of all, if you want to build a universal design, if you want to design for everyone, you have to make it unambiguous. You have to eliminate every guesswork by making it really straightforward, work with really easy to understand wording, but also supportive cues. And here, redundancy is key. I'm not talking about decorative elements, I'm really talking about key interface elements. Then you have to make it familiar, and the best way to do that is to speak with the user. Try to understand what are the different local and cultural realities, what are the local conventions, what are the patterns in different regions of the world. And then I personally believe you have to introduce a little bit of flexibility in your interface by having this kind of layer that accommodates to the local needs and expectation of your users. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I didn't take too much, and open for your questions.